This is not a fairy tale for children. A queen killed her husband just to have a child. A woman peeled off her own skin to stay young, and a princess was sold by her own father to a monster. Instead, they feel that the extreme edge of human nature really can be this insane. The story takes place in southern Italy in the 17th century. Here, there are 3 neighboring kingdoms, and each kingdom has one truly bizarre member of royalty. In the first kingdom, the queen has an obsessive attachment to her son. She desperately wants a child, but no matter how hard she and her husband try, she never becomes pregnant. Today, the king invites a circus troupe to perform at the castle. Everyone watching the performance bursts into laughter. Only the queen sits there with a displeased face, staring down at the stage. Just then, an actress is splashed with water. She quickly opens her outer robe and shakes off the water, only to reveal the pregnant belly beneath it. The queen thinks this is meant to mock her, and immediately storms back to her room in anger. By coincidence, that very night, a sorcerer arrives at the castle. He tells the king that the arrival of every life is accompanied by the death of another. This is how the world maintains its balance. If he wants the queen to carry a child, he must take the risk of hunting down a sea monster. Then he must remove its heart, have a virgin cook it alone, and let the queen eat the cooked heart. That way, she will become pregnant at once. To make his wife happy, the king immediately puts on a diving suit, then walks alone into the bottom of the sea. The sea monster hiding there is still sleeping soundly in its lair. The king carefully approaches the monster, and the sharp spear point instantly pierces its skull. The sea monster instinctively struggles as it dies. While dodging, the king is struck hard by the monster's tail. The force is terrifying, and the flesh beneath his diving suit splits open at once. Fortunately, the sea monster finally dies. Its heart is cleanly carved up by the soldiers, but in that short span of time, the king coughs up blood and dies on the beach. When the queen rushes over after hearing the news, she does not even glance at the king, and anxiously takes the sea monster's heart back to the castle. Soon, a virgin girl is brought in. Following the queen's order, she roughly throws the heart into boiling water. Before long, steam fills the room. The maid is inevitably surrounded by the rising vapor. She suddenly feels unwell, especially as her belly begins to swell slightly. In the blink of an eye, she is pregnant. After that, the blood-soaked sea monster heart is served on the queen's dining table. That night, the queen and the maid give birth at the same time. Only one child is the future heir, Elias, while the other is merely Jonah, the son of a lowly servant. 16 years pass, and both boys grow up. Strangely, their hair and eyebrows are completely white, and even their faces are identical. The queen does not like Elias spending time with Jonah, but the 2 boys become friends beyond anyone's control. They also often dive in the waters where the sea monster once lived. To see Jonah, Elias always defies the queen's wishes. The queen is furious and sends soldiers to search for the 2 boys, but the soldiers cannot find them at all, even though the 2 are swimming in the deep water right beneath their feet. With no other choice, the queen goes to Jonah's mother and questions why she has failed to discipline her child. The maid does not dare talk back to the queen at any point. Elias happens to return and sees the scene. When he sees that the maid has been scolded to tears, he quickly takes all the blame onto himself. But the queen sternly tells him that a prince cannot be friends with a servant's son. Elias stubbornly says that Jonah is like his brother, and he will see him whenever he wants. The queen tells Elias that his only blood bond can be with his mother. This unpleasant conversation ends with both of them parting on bad terms. To ease the relationship between mother and son, the queen invites the circus performers into the palace. She thinks this will keep her son by her side. That night, Elias is indeed much more obedient. Not only is his tone less sharp, but he even thoughtfully helps her choose jewelry. What she does not know is that the Elias in front of her is actually Jonah wearing Elias's clothes. Elias is deeply surprised. The resemblance between him and Jonah is so strong that even his own mother cannot tell them apart. But while they are excited about this discovery, they have no idea that the queen has secretly heard everything. She cannot tolerate her son meeting Jonah in private, and she is even more afraid that one day, Jonah might replace Elias. Meanwhile, Elias is still imagining the future. Once he inherits the throne, he and Jonah can take turns being king. But the queen, listening in the shadows, only feels a chill run through her body as she trembles with anger. She quickly goes to her son's room to check on him. By then, Jonah has already hidden himself. Only the polite yet distant Elias remains in the room. The queen does not search the room immediately, but chooses to play on his emotions. She says Elias has her very own hands, and even though he stayed in her body for only one short night, he still inherited her likeness. Unexpectedly, Elias is completely unmoved by the queen's affection. He only says coldly that she has already said these words many times. The queen is so angry that she soon leaves. Elias's tense heart finally relaxes. He knows tonight is not a good time to talk with Jonah, so he tells him to leave through the underground storage room. The two also agree to meet again tomorrow. But when Jonah enters the storage room, something unexpected happens. Jonah quickly crawls into the darkness to hide. Through the flickering firelight, he finally discovers that the person attacking him is the queen. Unable to persuade Elias, she can only secretly eliminate this problem herself. Fortunately, the queen has no real fighting skill, and Jonah's injuries are not fatal. He escapes the storage room in the dark, and for several days, he does not go to see Elias. Elias, who knows nothing, becomes deeply worried. That day, while painting a portrait with the queen, he sees from far away that Jonah in the commoner's district seems to be saying a final goodbye to the maid. Elias quickly runs over to ask what is happening. He guesses something must have happened, but Jonah tells him not to ask anymore. If he does not leave now, there is a good chance he will lose his life. To comfort Elias, who is troubled by their parting, Jonah takes him to an ancient tree. Then he drives a knife into the roots, and clear water begins to flow from inside. Jonah tells Elias that from now on, he can come here every day to check the spring. If the water is clear, it means his life is peaceful and safe. If the water is muddy, it means he is in trouble. If the spring runs dry, it means his life has reached its end. Seeing that Jonah is determined to go out into the world, Elias does not try to stop him any longer. Every day, he honors their promise and comes beneath the tree to check the spring. Then one day, he is horrified to discover that the water has turned muddy. This means Jonah is in trouble, so he leaves the castle alone to rescue him. By the time the queen discovers Elias is missing, he has already arrived in a village. The place is poorer than Elias could ever have imagined, but the moment he appears, a girl runs over and embraces him warmly. With tears in her voice, she says Jonah has finally come back. Elias does not reveal his identity right away. He pretends to have lost his memory and asks the girl what happened. Only then does he learn that Jonah went into the forest 5 days ago and never returned. Meanwhile, back at the castle, the queen is nearly driven mad. Unable to find her son, she can only seek help from the sorcerer again. The sorcerer says she is trying to separate people who cannot be separated, but the queen remains stubborn, wanting only for Elias to return to her side. So the sorcerer repeats the words he originally told the king: to satisfy the desire in your heart, you must pay an unpredictable price. The queen agrees without hesitation. On Elias's side, he has already entered the forest. He calls out Jonah's name everywhere. Jonah, who has fallen into a deep valley, quickly responds when he hears the call. Unexpectedly, a monster flies right in front of him. Terrified, Jonah hurriedly hides inside a cave, but the monster follows him in, trying to kill Jonah with its sharp claws. One of Jonah's legs is injured from the fall, so he crawls very slowly. Fortunately, the huge monster also has difficulty moving through the cave. Just as they are trapped in a standoff, Elias, hearing the cries for help, has already found the cave entrance. He quickly slides down and hugs Jonah, and when the monster tries to attack, he shields Jonah with his own body. At that moment, the monster strangely stops attacking. Its eyes also become clear for a brief instant, but Elias does not understand what the monster means. Taking advantage of its moment of hesitation, he drives his sword into its neck. In the blink of an eye, the monster dies inside the cave. After that, Elias brings Jonah back to the village. He does not ask Jonah to stay by his side. After the two part at the doorway, Elias leaves alone. Jonah stays behind to spend his life with the girl, and no one notices that the monster's corpse in the cave begins to quietly change, gradually revealing its original form. It turns out the monster was the queen, obsessed with her son. She tried to bind him to herself, and in the end paid with her own life. Next comes the story of the second kingdom. The king of this kingdom is lecherous by nature and indulges completely in pleasure. Even on his way to the first king's funeral, he brings two beauties into the carriage for his own amusement. The castle he lives in is filled with music and revelry every night, but no one can withstand his demands. That day, the energetic king hears a burst of singing. Following the sound, he finds a girl singing in front of a house. The king is immediately attracted by the girl's silhouette and cannot wait to meet her. Unexpectedly, after hearing his praise, the girl is so flustered that she hides back inside the house. The king thinks she is playing hard to get. After all, who could refuse an invitation from the ruler of a kingdom? So he returns to the castle, takes the most beautiful necklace from his jewelry box, and has a soldier deliver it to the girl's home. This time, the girl still does not show herself. She only has the soldier place the gift in a bucket, then pulls the bucket into the room. Only then does the camera reveal the truth inside the house. There is no young, beautiful girl here at all, only two aging sisters. They have never seen such beautiful jewelry before, and immediately fight to try it on first. That night, after praying, the two are just about to sleep when someone knocks on their door. The impatient king is standing outside, pouring out the love in his heart. The younger sister wants to explain that the king has mistaken them for someone else, but the older sister suddenly covers her mouth. Clearly, she wants to use this chance to climb into the king's world. So when the king asks to meet her, she does not refuse directly. Instead, she speaks in a delicate voice, saying now is not a good time to meet.
You can't imagine how the modesty of this young virgin is being put to the test by your offer.
The older sister is afraid that her old, weakened body will scare off the king's sudden desire, so she promises him that in 1 week, she will let the king see her finger. Under the older sister's sweet-talking assault, the king agrees to her proposal, but the problem is that the skin all over the older sister's body is already loose, and even her index finger has not been spared. How can she restore herself to a younger state? After the king leaves, the older sister spends a whole week caring for her finger. Unfortunately, the result is far from satisfying. She immediately wails in despair. The younger sister quickly comes over to comfort her. Just then, another knock comes from outside. The agreed time has arrived. Hearing the king's expectant voice outside the door, the older sister becomes even more desperate. In the end, she can only push her younger sister's finger through the hole in the door. The king really is desire on legs, able to fantasize wildly over just one finger. The younger sister endures the discomfort the entire time. What she does not know is that the older sister has already been enchanted by the king and fallen in love. Without thinking much, she agrees to the king's request. She says she can come to the castle to meet him at night, on the condition that the castle must stay dark. Every candle must be extinguished. Beyond that, the older sister also needs to tighten her skin. After all, what she is about to do is give herself to him, not simply meet and chat. So the younger sister manually glues the wrinkles all over her body flat, then watches as the older sister walks step by step into the castle. The king does indeed follow the rules of the game, specially sending soldiers ahead of the older sister to blow out the lights and guide her. The bedroom is so dark that no one's face can be seen. That night, the younger sister is so lonely that she cannot sleep. The older sister, meanwhile, sleeps deeply after everything is over, so deeply that she does not notice the king waking up. Curious, he brings over a candle to see what she looks like. One look frightens the king out of his soul. Ignoring the intimacy they shared the night before, he immediately throws open the curtains, calls the soldiers in, and has the older sister thrown out the window, blanket and all. Fortunately, outside is a dense forest. The blanket cushions the older sister, and she does not fall to her death. She is also lucky enough to meet a sorceress. The sorceress takes her down from the tree, only to find the older sister wailing as if life is worse than death. The sorceress holds the older sister like a baby, then feeds her milk. During this process, the older sister gradually falls asleep, but her body miraculously becomes young. No one knows how much time passes. One day, the king goes hunting in the forest and sees a naked beauty standing among the trees, looking like a heavenly being descended to earth. The king is so captivated that he cannot take his eyes off her. He does not recognize that the beauty is the older sister, and immediately brings her back to the castle. That very day, he holds their wedding. After rising to power, the older sister does not forget the younger sister who once depended on her in the poor district. She immediately sends someone to bring her younger sister formal clothing, inviting her to the castle to attend her wedding. It is an incredibly gorgeous dress, but without the older sister's help, the younger sister looks awkward wearing it, and cannot even arrange the corset properly. Still, as she moves among the rich and powerful, the younger sister does not care about her appearance at all. She is only happy for her sister's marriage, and even more excited that her sister has become beautiful. What the older sister originally thinks is that now, as queen, she can make sure her younger sister never worries about food or clothing again, but to prevent her identity from being exposed, they must hide their relationship. Yet the younger sister seems not to understand her words. Not only does she refuse to leave after the wedding, she insists on sleeping with her sister. The older sister again urges her to leave, saying no one can discover her existence. The younger sister does not understand why. Anxious for her wedding night, the older sister can only make up a reason. She says the younger sister is already too old, and no one will believe they are sisters. The younger sister wants to become young and stay with her sister forever, so she asks the older sister what exactly happened to her. Unexpectedly, the older sister herself does not remember to send her younger sister away. She can only lie and say that she peeled off her own skin. At that moment, the king is about to come in from outside, so the older sister can only hide her younger sister behind a screen. But the younger sister, who has never seen what happens between husband and wife, curiously walks out. The sudden appearance of another person in the room startles the king. He quickly calls soldiers to drag the younger sister away. At the older sister's request, the younger sister is not punished, but being separated from her sister is more unbearable to her than any punishment, so she finds a barber and gives him all her jewelry, hoping he can peel off her skin. One barber thinks she is ill and refuses her, but there is never a shortage of people blinded by money, and someone still takes the risk and agrees. He takes the younger sister into the forest, ties her to a tree, and cuts into her skin with a knife. Her screams of pain instantly echo through the entire forest. Unfortunately, the result is obvious. The younger sister does not become young again. Covered in blood, she walks back to the king's castle. People around her keep looking at her strangely. They all think the younger sister has gone mad. At that moment, the older sister is attending the coronation ceremony in the neighboring kingdom. She has no idea that her younger sister has paid such a terrible price to become beautiful, and at this very moment, something strange begins happening to her too. The skin on her body starts aging rapidly. Not wanting the king to discover her true identity, the older sister can only run away in a panic. From sisters who once depended on each other to now being completely alone, she says goodbye in despair to this brief and shattered life. Now let us look at the final story. This king is so twisted that he raises a flea as a pet. The king's wife died many years ago, leaving only his princess daughter by his side. But when the princess writes him a beautiful song, all his attention is on the flea. To keep others from discovering his bizarre obsession, he raises the flea in his bedroom and feeds it with blood from his fingertip. After that, he observes the flea's behavior through a magnifying glass. The princess has now reached the age when a young heart begins to long for love, but the king is not anxious at all about her marriage, spending all day immersed in the busy work of making toys for the flea. Because of this, he even neglects affairs of state. That day, soldiers come to him carrying a large pile of documents, but the king does not care at all. Compared with making toys for his flea, the people's problems are only tiny matters not worth attention, and the princess, whom he has raised in the castle since childhood, finally shows her dissatisfaction. She fears that if she keeps staying here, her mind will stay empty forever, and her heart will become barren too. Only then does the king remember that the princess has reached marriageable age. As long as she gets married, she can leave this castle, but seeing the princess so happy, the king looks a little lonely. He cannot bear to let the princess leave him. Yet this king, who seems like a doting father, orders the kitchen to cook the food a little raw, just so he can secretly bring it to the flea in his bedroom. Watching the flea eat makes the king feel happier than talking with his daughter. The flea also grows fatter and stronger under the king's care day by day. But one night, the king cries out in terror for a doctor to come to his bedroom. The doctor immediately feels as if he is facing a major crisis, assuming something is wrong with the king's body. Only after the king guides him does the doctor discover that it is a giant flea that has fallen ill. He hurriedly diagnoses the flea, but before he can find the problem, the flea stops breathing. This leaves the king instantly heartbroken, and he can only lie beside the flea's corpse to ease his grief. But suddenly, he thinks of a good idea. The next day, the king prepares a wedding gown for the princess, making a grand show of choosing her husband. The princess originally thinks the king is going to hold a tournament for her hand, because the husband she imagines must be as brave as a knight and as wise as a doctor. Unexpectedly, the king merely hangs a piece of hide in the great hall and announces that whoever can guess what creature it belongs to will become the princess's prince. On the day of the contest, sure enough, many people guess wrong. The princess curiously asks the king what the answer is.
Please, I'm longing to know. Just tell me what piece that strange hide belongs to.
It is the skin of a flea.
It turns out that the princess's marriage has become a sacrifice to the king's bizarre obsession. He assumes no one will ever guess that it is flea's skin. That way, he can keep the princess by his side while also satisfying his own desire to show off. Unexpectedly, because of this very idea, the princess is about to face a hopeless life. At that moment, a wild man steps out from the crowd. He merely smells it and determines that the giant hide comes from a flea. Both the king and the princess cannot believe it, but the king only cares about the flea's skin, while the princess cannot accept marrying a wild man. She runs crying to the castle roof, wanting to jump and end her life. The king quickly follows her and explains that he never meant to marry her to a wild man, but once his words have been spoken, how can he take them back? Because of this, father and daughter argue on the rooftop.
You're not a king. You're not even a man. Not even a beast. Beasts at least love their offspring. They try to protect them, but not you.
The princess's words make the king furious. He is no longer a loving father, but a ruthless emperor holding power in his hands. The princess finally realizes this. She no longer gives up on herself by trying to jump, but calmly accepts the king's arrangement and follows the wild man out of the castle. Although the princess trembles with fear, she still crosses thorns, climbs over mountains, and returns to the wild man's cave halfway up the mountain. But something even more terrifying awaits. The cave is not only crude and open to the wind on all sides, but the ground is also piled with white bones. The princess has never seen such a scene, and can only run to a corner to hide. And the food prepared by the wild man is even harder for the princess to swallow. It is raw meat dripping with blood. At night, ignoring the princess's pleas, the wild man drags her to the bed. The princess originally still tries to persuade him not to do this, but later, with no ability to resist, she can only silently endure everything. Even the wedding dress on her body becomes dirtier and more torn under days of suffering. Still, the princess never gives up asking for help. That day, she notices a woman on the opposite mountain. She quickly explains her situation to the woman and begs her to save her, but the woman says she is powerless too. Fortunately, her son is a circus performer and is excellent at walking a tightrope. He can come here tomorrow to rescue the princess. So the next morning, while the wild man is not paying attention, the princess comes to the edge of the cliff. Then a boy carries her on his shoulders and steps onto the road away from this place. Beneath their feet is only a single tight rope, and below the rope is a bottomless abyss. But at this critical moment, the wild man actually discovers the fleeing princess. Seeing the wild man fall into the abyss, they think the rescue has succeeded. Everyone finally relaxes. Unexpectedly, the wild man not only survives the disaster, but quickly catches up to their carriage. The circus family tries to stop him, but in this fight of many against one, every one of them is killed. The tightrope walking boy and his mother even have their necks snapped by the wild man right in front of the princess. The princess runs in terror all the way, but she cannot find a second chance to ask for help, and can only hide in the cracks between nearby rocks. But the wild man, with his sharp sense of smell, still finds her. The wild man is extremely furious over the princess's betrayal. Covered in wounds, he already wants to strangle the princess, but after the princess briefly shows weakness, his heart softens again, and he lets the princess climb onto his back. The wild man wants to carry the princess back to the cave, but the princess counterattacks at that moment. After killing the wild man, the princess walks back to her kingdom on foot. By now, the king is critically ill and can only prolong his life through the backward practice of bloodletting. When he learns that the princess has returned, he runs to her full of guilt. Unexpectedly, the princess has brought the wild man's head here. Seeing this, the king sobs and begs the princess for forgiveness, but no matter how painfully he cries, the princess never says the words of forgiveness. Not long after, to make amends to the princess, the king willingly passes the throne to her, and at the princess's coronation, as she watches the tightrope performance above her head, she finally realizes that she herself is the person she had been waiting for. Whether in courage or wisdom, she is lost to no one in the kingdom. And with that, the film Tale of Tales comes to an end. It is adapted from the 17th century Neapolitan fairy tale collection The Tale of Tales by Giambattista Basile. The book tells of a clever lady who, in order to cure a prince suffering from melancholy, tells him stories for 5 straight days. A total of 49 fairy tales. Every fairy tale is a darker version, and although this film adapts only 3 of those tales, it captures the spirit of the original perfectly, showing human obsession in all its extreme intensity.